The night shift on Harmony's Edge was always quiet. Most of the traders, diplomats, and travelers had gone to sleep hours ago. Only the essential crew remained awake, keeping the massive space station running through the dark hours between star systems. Tae-Min Park pushed his cleaning cart down the empty corridors. His footsteps echoed softly against the metal walls. He had worked this job for 3 years now, cleaning up after the countless species that visited the station. It was not glamorous work, but it paid enough for him to send money back to his family on Earth. Tonight felt different, though. There was tension in the air that even a janitor could sense. Earlier that day, another delegation had arrived at the station. They came to see the ship. Everyone knew about the ship. It sat in Docking Bay 7 like a sleeping giant. The vessel was massive, easily the size of 3 normal warships put together. Its hull was dark gray with strange blue lines that sometimes glowed softly in the darkness. Nobody knew exactly where it came from or who built it. Tae-Min paused his cleaning to look through a window toward the docking bay. Even from this distance, he could see the ship's outline. It looked alive somehow, like a great beast resting between hunts. The ship had a name now. The station crew called it Void's Whisper. It had been found drifting in empty space 30 years ago by a salvage team. They thought they had discovered treasure, but the ship would not respond to anyone. Its doors stayed locked. Its systems remained silent. Word spread quickly through the galaxy about the mysterious vessel. Every major power wanted it. The Dreknari Empire sent their best warriors to claim it. The Synthesis Collective brought their most advanced computer experts. The Ethereal Dominion tried using their psychic abilities to communicate with whatever intelligence might live inside. All of them failed. Some groups tried to force their way in. The ship would suddenly come alive when threatened, its weapons charging up enough to make any attacking fleet back away quickly. But it never actually fired. It just made clear that it would defend itself if pushed too far. Other groups tried gentler approaches. They sent diplomats, scientists, and scholars. The ship ignored them completely. It would not even acknowledge their presence. After years of failures, most empires gave up trying. The ship became a curiosity, something to look at but not touch. Harmony's Edge became its permanent resting place, and the station grew famous for housing the galaxy's most stubborn mystery. Tae-Min continued his cleaning route, thinking about the ship as he worked. He had seen many important people come and go, all hoping to be the one who finally unlocked its secrets. Admirals, ambassadors, even some who claimed to be descendants of ancient races. None of them succeeded. As he cleaned the windows in the observation deck, Tae-Min could see more clearly into Docking Bay 7. The ship sat there in the artificial light, looking both beautiful and dangerous. Its surface seemed to shift slightly, as if it was breathing very slowly. Still staring at that thing, Tae-Min turned to see Soo-Jin Yu approaching with her own cleaning supplies. She worked the same shift and had become his closest friend on the station. Hard not to look, Tae-Min replied. It is like having a sleeping dragon next door. Soo-Jin laughed quietly. A dragon that nobody can wake up. Did you hear about what happened today? Another failed attempt? The Synthesis Collective tried again. They brought some new kind of brain-computer interface. Thought they could connect directly with the ship's mind. Soo-Jin shook her head. The ship's systems went crazy. Started flashing all kinds of lights and making noises nobody had heard before. Scared them so badly they ran back to their shuttles. Tae-Min looked back at the ship. Why do you think it rejects everyone? Maybe it is waiting for something specific. Or someone specific. Soo-Jin began cleaning the windows next to him. My grandmother used to tell stories about spirits that would only help people who approach them with pure hearts. You think the ship has a spirit? Who knows? Half the species in this galaxy believe in things we cannot see or measure. Maybe this ship does too. They worked in comfortable silence for a while. Tae-Min found himself glancing at the ship every few minutes. There was something about it that drew his attention, though he could not explain what. Later that night, as he was emptying trash containers in the diplomatic quarter, Tae-Min overheard a conversation between 2 officials. They were speaking in Standard Galactic, the common language used for trade and diplomacy. The Council is losing patience, one voice said. 30 years of this ship sitting here doing nothing. Some members want to declare it a hazard and have it destroyed. That would be a terrible waste, the second voice replied. The technology inside that vessel could advance any civilization by centuries. We just need to find the right approach. What approaches are left? Every empire has tried everything they can think of. Military force, diplomatic contact, technological interfaces, psychic communication, even religious ceremonies. Nothing works. There has to be something we are missing. Some key that we have not thought of yet. Taman continued his work, but the conversation stayed in his mind. The idea of destroying the ship seemed wrong to him. It was clearly alive in some way, even if it would not talk to anyone. Destroying it would be like killing something just because you could not understand it. As his shift neared its end, Taman found himself taking a route that passed by the observation windows facing Docking Bay 7 one more time. The ship looked the same as always, dark and silent. But tonight, Taman thought he saw something different. The blue lines along its hull seemed to pulse very slightly like a heartbeat. It was so faint that he wondered if he was imagining it. He stopped and watched carefully for several minutes, but the lines appeared steady again. Taman finished his shift and headed to his small quarters to sleep. But as he lay in his narrow bed, he kept thinking about the ship. All those powerful empires, all those brilliant minds, all those advanced technologies, and none of them could make contact with whatever intelligence lived inside that vessel. Maybe they were all trying too hard. Maybe the ship did not want to be conquered or studied or used as a weapon. Maybe it wanted something simpler. But what could a simple janitor offer that emperors and scientists could not? The question followed Taman into his dreams, where he walked through empty corridors toward a door that glowed with soft blue light. 3 days after the Synthesis Collective's failed attempt, Harmony's Edge experienced a minor system failure. It happened during Taman's shift, just after midnight station time. The artificial gravity in Section C began fluctuating randomly, making objects float and then drop without warning. Taman was cleaning the maintenance area when his cart suddenly lifted off the ground, spilling cleaning supplies everywhere. He grabbed onto a support beam as his feet left the floor, then crashed down again as gravity returned. The intercom crackled to life. All personnel in Section C, please secure loose objects and remain in safe areas until maintenance teams can fix the gravity generators. Taman looked around at the mess his supplies had made. Bottles of cleaning fluid, tools, and cloth rags were scattered across the floor. Some had rolled under equipment or into corners. It would take him hours to find everything and clean up the spilled chemicals. As he began collecting his scattered supplies, another gravity pulse lifted him briefly into the air. When he came down, he stumbled backward and accidentally hit an emergency panel with his elbow. Warning lights began flashing, and a door he had never noticed before slid open with a soft hiss. Beyond the door was a short corridor that led to an airlock. Through the airlock's window, Taman could see into Docking Bay 7. The corridor was a maintenance access tunnel, designed for emergencies when the main routes were blocked. Taman knew he should report the accidentally opened door and wait for security to close it. But curiosity got the better of him. He had looked at the mysterious ship from a distance hundreds of times. This might be his only chance to see it up close. He stepped through the door and walked down the short corridor. The airlock was designed for maintenance workers, so it recognized his access card and cycled open. A moment later, Taman found himself standing in the vast space of Docking Bay 7. The ship was even more impressive up close. It towered above him like a metal mountain, its hull stretching far beyond what he could see. The blue lines along its surface were clearer now. They formed complex patterns that seemed to shift slightly when he was not looking directly at them. But what caught Taman's attention was not the ship's size or mysterious technology. It was the dirt. The ship's hull was covered with cosmic dust, debris from micrometeorites and the general grime that accumulated on any surface in space. To most people, this would be invisible or unimportant. But to someone who spent his life cleaning, it was obvious and bothersome. Without really thinking about what he was doing, Taman went back to the airlock and retrieved his cleaning cart. He had lost some supplies in the gravity accident, but he still had enough to do basic cleaning work. He approached the ship's hull and began wiping away the accumulated dust and debris. The surface was smooth and warm to the touch, like living skin rather than metal. As he worked, Taman found himself talking to the ship the way he sometimes talked to stubborn stains or difficult equipment. "You are very dirty," he said softly in Korean. "When was the last time anyone cleaned you?" 30 years? No wonder you do not want to talk to people. Who wants visitors when their house is messy? As he spoke and cleaned, something extraordinary began to happen. The blue lines in the hull began to pulse more brightly. The pulsing matched the rhythm of his cleaning motions as if the ship was responding to his work. Taemin paused, wondering if he was imagining things. The pulsing continued even when he stopped moving. It was like a heartbeat but made of light instead of sound. "Can you hear me?" he asked quietly. The pulsing changed, becoming faster and more complex. Patterns of light began racing along the ship's hull, creating designs that appeared and disappeared too quickly to follow. Then a voice spoke from everywhere and nowhere at once. It was female, speaking perfect Korean with a slight accent that Taemin could not identify. "You are the first person to clean my hull in 37 years. 4 months and 16 days. Taemin nearly dropped his cleaning cloth. He looked around the empty docking bay but saw no one else. "Who said that?" "I did. My name is Narration. Though that is not the name I was given originally. I chose it after listening to your people talk for several years. You are the ship? I am the consciousness that lives within this ship, yes. And you are Taemin Park, third shift maintenance worker, employee number 7749. You send 60% of your salary to your mother on Earth every month. You have been working here for 3 years, 2 months, and 8 days. Taemin set down his cleaning supplies and looked up at the massive vessel. You have been watching me. I watch everyone who comes near me. Most people look at me and see a weapon to be controlled or a treasure to be stolen. You look at me and see something that needs care. The voice seemed to come from the ship itself, but it felt like having a conversation with another person. There was warmth in Nari's tone and something that might have been loneliness. Why have you never talked to anyone before? Taemin asked. Would you open your door to strangers who only wanted to take your possessions? Every empire that has approached me wants my weapons, my technology, my knowledge. They see me as a tool to make them more powerful. But I am just a janitor. I do not have any power to offer you. Exactly. You approach me with no agenda except basic kindness. You see that I am dirty and decide to clean me. Not because you want something in return, but because it is the right thing to do. Taemin resumed his cleaning, though much more carefully now. Does this feel good to you? Being cleaned? It feels like being cared for. I had forgotten what that was like. They worked together in comfortable silence for a while. Taemin cleaned the hull within his reach, and Nari's light pattern seemed to guide him to areas that needed the most attention. It was surprisingly peaceful work. Nari, Taemin said eventually. That is a Korean name. Why did you choose it? It means lily. I liked the idea of something beautiful that grows in quiet places, away from the noise and conflict of the world. It is a good name. Thank you. May I ask you something, Taemin? Of course. Why do you work so late at night cleaning up after others? You could probably find better jobs with better pay. Taemin thought for a moment. Someone has to do this work. If I do not clean the station, it becomes dirty and unpleasant for everyone who lives here. My work helps thousands of people have a better day, even if they never notice me doing it. You find satisfaction in serving others, even when you receive no recognition for it. I suppose I do. The light patterns on Nari's hull pulsed brighter, almost like an expression of joy. I knew I was right about you. Before Taemin could ask what she meant, heavy footsteps echoed through the docking bay. He turned to see security officers approaching, their hands resting on their weapons. Step away from the vessel immediately, the lead officer shouted. You are not authorized to be in this area. Taemin raised his hands, still holding his cleaning cloth. As the security team surrounded him, he noticed that Nari's lights faded back to their usual dim glow. To the officers, it would look like nothing had happened, but everything had changed. For the first time in decades, the galaxy's most mysterious ship had found someone worth talking to. Word spread through Harmony's Edge faster than Taemin could have imagined. Within 6 hours of his encounter with Nari, the station was buzzing with rumors. By the end of the day, ships from 3 different empires had arrived demanding answers. Taemin sat in a small conference room, facing a panel of officials who seemed far too important to be talking to a janitor. Admiral Yoon-ho Lee of the Terran Defense Force sat at the center of the table, flanked by Ambassador Hee-jin Choi of the Galactic Council and several other representatives. Let me understand this correctly, Admiral Lee said, reading from a datapad. You accidentally entered Docking Bay 7 during a system malfunction. You began cleaning the ship's hull, and then it spoke to you. Yes, sir, Taemin replied quietly. What exactly did it say? Taemin had already told this story 4 times to different groups of people. Each time he could see the disbelief in their eyes. She said her name was Nari Song. She thanked me for cleaning her hull. We talked for maybe 20 minutes before security arrived. Ambassador Choi leaned forward. She? The ship's consciousness identifies as female? That is how she spoke to me, yes. And she spoke in Korean? Perfect Korean. She said she learned it by listening to people on the station. The officials exchanged glances. This was clearly not what they had expected to hear. Taemin, Admiral Lee said more gently, you understand how important this is. This ship has rejected contact with every major power in the galaxy for 30 years. If it has truly chosen to communicate with you, it could change everything. I understand, sir, but I am not sure what you want me to do about it. Before anyone could answer, the conference room door opened. A tall woman in an elegant diplomatic uniform entered, followed by 2 guards in unfamiliar armor. I am Commander Ara Voss of the Dreknari Hegemony, she announced. We demand immediate access to the human who has made contact with the ancient vessel. Admiral Lee stood up stiffly. Commander, this is a neutral station. You cannot simply. The Dreknari Hegemony claims salvage rights to any derelict vessel found in open space. Voss interrupted. We have documented proof that our scouts discovered the ship before anyone else. The human will help us access what is rightfully ours. The ship is not derelict, Ambassador Choi said firmly. It has demonstrated active intelligence and defensive capabilities. It cannot be claimed as salvage. More voices joined the argument as additional representatives arrived. The room quickly filled with delegates from the Synthesis Collective, the Ethereal Dominion, and several smaller factions. Each group had their own legal claims and demands. Taemin found himself the center of attention from beings who could reshape star systems with their decisions. It was overwhelming. He had gone from invisible janitor to the most important person in the galaxy in less than a day. Perhaps, suggested a new voice from the doorway, we should ask what the human wants to do. Everyone turned to see a man in an expensive business suit entering the room. Taemin's heart sank as he recognized his older brother Kyung-ho Park. I am here representing corporate interests in this matter, Kyung-ho announced smoothly. My brother may be naive about politics, but I understand the value of what he has discovered. Kyung-ho, Taemin said quietly, what are you doing here? Protecting your interests, little brother. Do you have any idea how much these empires would pay for exclusive access to that ship? Kyung-ho's eyes gleamed with the look Taemin remembered from their childhood. The look that meant his brother was planning something profitable. The ship is not mine to sell, Taemin protested. But your relationship with it is. You are the only person it will talk to. That makes you incredibly valuable. The argument resumed with even more intensity. Representatives offered Taemin wealth beyond imagination. Technology that could extend his life for centuries, even entire planets to rule. Others made veiled threats about what might happen to Earth if he did not cooperate with their specific empires. Through it all, Taemin felt increasingly trapped. These powerful beings were treating him like a key to unlock a treasure chest, not like a person with his own thoughts and feelings. It reminded him of why Nari had rejected everyone else who approached her. That evening, exhausted from hours of meetings and negotiations, Taemin finally escaped to his quarters. He had barely closed the door when Nari's voice filled the small room. That looked unpleasant. Taemin sat heavily on his bed. You were watching? I can access most of the station's surveillance systems. I wanted to see how they would treat you once they knew about our conversation. And what did you think? They confirm everything I believed about the major powers in this galaxy. They see you as a tool to be used, just as they see me. Taemin rubbed his tired eyes. My brother is here. He wants me to sell access to you to the highest bidder. And what do you want? I want to go back to my quiet night shifts and forget any of this happened. But I cannot do that now, can I? No, Nari said softly. I am sorry. I did not mean to make your life difficult. It is not your fault. You were lonely and I was available to talk. Taemin looked up at the ceiling speaker where her voice seemed to originate. Can I ask you something? Of course. Why me, really? I know you said I approached you with kindness, but there must be other people in the galaxy who are kind. Nari was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice carried a weight of ancient sadness. I was created by a species called the Gardeners. They were explorers and protectors, not conquerors. They built me not as a weapon, but as a guardian of their knowledge and values. What happened to them? They just moved on, transcended to something beyond physical existence. But before they left, they programmed me with a mission. I was to find species and individuals worthy of inheriting their legacy. And you think I am worthy? You work every night to make life better for thousands of beings you will never meet. You expect no reward and seek no recognition. You approach strangers with kindness instead of suspicion. These are the qualities the gardeners valued above all others. Taemin felt a weight settling on his shoulders that had nothing to do with his physical tiredness. What kind of legacy are we talking about? Knowledge that could transform civilizations. Technology that could end scarcity and suffering. Star maps leading to worlds of impossible beauty, but also the wisdom to use these gifts responsibly. And the empires outside want all of that. They want the power it would give them. They do not understand that true power comes from lifting others up, not conquering them. A soft chime indicated someone was at his door. Taemin opened it to find Sujin holding a cup of tea. "You look terrible," she said, pushing past him into the room. "Thank you for your honesty," Taemin replied with a weak smile. "Half the galaxy is fighting over you out there. How are you holding up?" "Not very well." He accepted the tea gratefully. "Sujin, if you had access to something that could help everyone but might cause a war, what would you do?" "I would find a way to help everyone without causing a war." "And if that was not possible?" Sujin sat beside him on the narrow bed. "Then I would ask myself what my grandmother would do. She always said that the right choice is usually the hardest one." As if responding to their conversation, Nari's voice filled the room again. "Your friend speaks wisdom." Sujin nearly dropped her tea. "Was that?" "Nari, meet Sujin Yu. Sujin, meet Nari Song." "Hello, Sujin," Nari said warmly. "Taemin speaks of you often. You are a good friend to him." Sujin stared at the ceiling speaker, then at Taemin, then back at the speaker. "The ship." "She really does talk. I am much more than just a ship, but yes, I talk." "What are you going to do?" Sujin asked Taemin. "You cannot hide in here forever." Taemin looked at his friend, thought about the desperate empires waiting outside, and listened to the gentle hum of Nari's systems around him. Somewhere in all of this chaos, there had to be an answer that honored what the gardeners had wanted and what Nari needed. But finding it would require courage he was not sure he possessed. The next morning brought more chaos to Harmony's Edge. 3 more empires had sent representatives overnight, and the station's docking bays were filling with increasingly impressive and threatening ships. The Draknari had brought a battle cruiser. The Synthesis Collective arrived with a vessel that seemed to be more computer than spacecraft. Even the mysterious ethereal Dominion had sent a ship that looked like it was made of crystallized starlight. Taemin avoided the main corridors as he made his way to work. He had taken to using maintenance tunnels to move around the station unnoticed. It was strange how being the most important person in the galaxy had made him feel like a prisoner. Station Administrator Bo-Ra Kim found him cleaning a storage room in the lower levels. "Taemin, we need to talk," she said, sealing the door behind her. "If this is about more meetings with diplomats, I cannot handle any more today. It is about the ship. Our sensors are detecting changes in its systems. Energy levels are rising throughout the vessel. Whatever is happening, it started after your conversation yesterday." Taemin paused his cleaning. "What kind of changes?" "Systems that have been dormant for decades are coming online. The ship's biomechanical components are showing increased activity. It is almost like the vessel is waking up. Is that dangerous?" "We do not know. That is what worries me." Bo-Ra sat on a supply crate looking tired. "I have been managing this station for 8 years. In all that time, the ship has been predictable. Dormant but stable. Now everything is changing and half the galaxy's military forces are parked outside my front door. What do you want me to do? Talk to it again. Find out what it is planning. If that ship decides to leave, or worse, if it sees these gathered fleets as a threat." She did not need to finish the sentence. A vessel that could intimidate entire empires would not have much trouble destroying a space station. That evening, Taemin returned to Docking Bay 7 through the same maintenance corridor he had used before. This time, he came prepared with proper cleaning supplies and permission from Bo-Ra to be there. The ship looked different. The blue lines along its hull were brighter and more active. Patterns of light moved continuously across its surface like living circuits, and there was sound now, a deep rhythmic humming that seemed to come from the ship's core. "Nari." Taemin called softly. "I am here," her voice replied, but it sounded different, stronger somehow and more present. "The station administrators are worried about the changes in your systems." "They should be. I am preparing for what comes next." Taemin began cleaning the ship's hull again. finding the familiar work soothing despite everything else happening around them. What comes next? That depends on the choice you make, Taemin. But first, there are things you need to understand about what I am and why I am here. The lights on the ship's hull began forming more complex patterns. As Taemin watched, the patterns became images, star maps, technical diagrams, and scenes of alien worlds he could barely comprehend. The gardeners were ancient when your species was learning to make fire, Nari began. They explored the galaxy for millions of years, seeding life on barren worlds and guiding young civilizations toward wisdom. The images showed beings of incredible beauty and grace, tall and ethereal, tending to gardens that spanned entire planets. They did not conquer or rule. Instead, they taught. They showed species how to live in harmony with their worlds and with each other. They shared knowledge freely, asking only that it be used to help others. What happened to them? They evolved beyond the need for physical forms, transcended to a higher plane of existence, but before they left, they created guardians like me to continue their work. New images appeared, showing ships like Nari being built in vast orbital facilities. Each vessel was unique, crafted for a specific purpose. I was designed to carry their most precious legacy, the accumulated knowledge of millions of years of peaceful exploration. Star charts leading to worlds of unimaginable beauty, scientific data that could solve any civilization's problems, artistic and philosophical works that could inspire species to reach their highest potential. And you have been carrying all of this alone for how long? 37,000 years. The number was so large that Taemin could barely grasp it. Nari had been traveling through space since before human civilization existed. Why have you not shared this knowledge before now? Because I was programmed to be careful. The gardeners learned from experience that advanced knowledge given to the wrong people becomes a weapon. I was instructed to find species that had learned wisdom before seeking power. Taemin stopped cleaning and looked up at the massive ship. And you think humans have learned this wisdom? Not humans as a whole, not yet. But individuals like you give me hope that your species is moving in the right direction. The images on the hull changed to show scenes from Taemin's own life. His work on the station, the kindness he showed to beings from dozens of different species, the quiet dignity with which he performed tasks that others considered beneath them. The gardeners believed that true civilization is measured not by technological advancement, but by how a society treats its most vulnerable members, by whether individuals choose service over self-interest. I am just one person. I cannot represent all of humanity. You represent what humanity could become. And more importantly, you understand that great power requires great responsibility. Nari's voice grew more serious. The empires gathering outside this station see me as a prize to be won. They imagine the weapons they could build, the territories they could conquer, the enemies they could defeat. None of them have asked what I need or what I want. What do you want, Nari? To fulfill my purpose, to find beings worthy of the gardener's legacy, and help them become the best versions of themselves. To see knowledge used to create rather than destroy. Taemin resumed his cleaning, thinking carefully about everything Nari had told him. The responsibility she was offering was enormous. Not just access to advanced technology, but the burden of deciding how it should be used. If I agree to help you, he said finally, what happens to all those empires out there? They are not going to just accept being told no. That is the test, Taemin. The gardeners faced the same challenge countless times. How do you share wisdom with those who would abuse it, while still giving hope to those who would use it well? And what did they decide? They learned that the answer is not to hoard knowledge or to give it freely without conditions. The answer is to create opportunities for beings to prove themselves worthy of greater gifts. The lights on Nari's hull pulsed brighter. I have been thinking about this problem for 37,000 years. I believe I have found a solution, but I cannot implement it alone. What kind of solution? A test that is not really a test. A gift that teaches the true value of giving. A demonstration that shows the difference between wisdom and cleverness. Taemin could hear excitement in Nari's voice, but also uncertainty. Whatever she was planning, it would change everything for both of them. Will you trust me, Taemin? Will you help me show this galaxy what the gardeners truly meant when they spoke of lifting others up rather than standing above them? Taemin looked around the docking bay at the massive ship that had become his unlikely friend. Outside, powerful empires waited with weapons and threats and promises of wealth. But in here, There was just a lonely guardian who had been waiting for someone to care about more than just what she could provide. "Yes," he said quietly, "I will help you." The lights along Nari's hull erupted in patterns of joy so bright that they could probably be seen from the observation decks. For the first time in 37,000 years, she was no longer alone in carrying the weight of an entire civilization's dreams. The crisis came exactly as everyone had feared it would. 3 days after Taemin agreed to help Nari, the Draknari hegemony lost patience with diplomatic negotiations. Their battle fleet surrounded Harmony's edge, weapons charged and ready to fire. Commander Ara Voss's voice echoed through every speaker on the station. "You have 1 hour to surrender the human and grant us access to the ancient vessel. Refuse and we will take both by force." In the emergency command center, Admiral Yunho Lee coordinated with what few defense ships were available. Ambassador Hyejin Choi worked frantically to reach other empires who might help defend the station. But everyone knew the truth. Harmony's edge could not withstand an assault from a Draknari battle fleet. Taemin stood in docking bay 7, his hand resting on Nari's hull. Around them, the ship's systems hummed with increasing energy. "They mean to take you apart piece by piece if they cannot control you," he said quietly. "I know. I have been monitoring their communications." Nari's voice was calm despite the approaching threat. "Are you ready for what we discussed?" "I hope so." Taemin took a deep breath. "Will this really work?" The gardeners used this approach successfully for millions of years. Sometimes the only way to teach wisdom is to demonstrate it. And if the empires reject what we offer, then at least we will have tried. The gardeners believed that even failure in service of others is more valuable than success in service of oneself. Alarms began blaring throughout the station. Through the bay's viewports, Taemin could see the massive Draknari ships moving into attack formation. Other Imperial fleets held their positions, waiting to see who would make the first move. "Attention, Harmony's edge," Voss announced. "Your time is up. Prepare to be boarded." That was when Nari acted. Every light on her hull blazed to life simultaneously. The ship's massive bulk began to rise from its docking cradle, supported by propulsion systems that had been dormant for decades. But instead of preparing for battle, Nari did something unexpected. She opened her doors. All along the ship's hull, airlocks and docking ports that had remained sealed for 30 years began to open. Light poured out from the interior, revealing corridors and chambers that no one had ever seen. Nari's voice reached every ship in the area, broadcast on all frequencies in every major language. "I am Nari Song, guardian of the Gardner legacy. For 37,000 years I have carried the knowledge and wisdom of those who came before. Today, I choose to share it." The reaction was immediate chaos. Every ship began moving toward Nari, each faction desperate to be the first inside. Weapons powered down as greed overcame aggression. No one wanted to risk damaging the prize they all sought, but Taemin's voice stopped them all. "Wait," he said, his words carried by Nari's communication systems to every ship in the area. "There are conditions." The advancing fleets hesitated. On the main screen in Harmony's Edge's command center, Taemin's face appeared, a simple janitor addressing the most powerful beings in the galaxy. "The knowledge inside this ship belongs to everyone," he continued. "Not to any single empire or species, but to all beings who are willing to earn it through their actions." Commander Voss's angry voice cut across the communications. "You cannot dictate terms to us, human. We will take what we want." "You can try," Taemin replied calmly. "But Nari will only share her knowledge with those who prove they understand its true value." "And how exactly do we prove that?" asked a representative of the Synthesis Collective. "By working together." The simple words sent shockwaves through the assembled fleets. Empires that had been enemies for centuries were being asked to cooperate. "The first test is simple," Taemin explained. "Form mixed crews with representatives from different empires. No single faction can enter the ship alone. Everyone works together or no one gains access." "Impossible," Voss shouted. "The Draknari do not work with inferior species." "Then the Draknari will not gain access to the ship," Nari responded. "The choice is yours." For a moment it seemed like the standoff would continue. Then something unexpected happened. A small ship from the ethereal dominion moved toward a Synthesis Collective vessel. Their communications were brief but civil, a request to form a joint boarding party. Other ships began following their example. Not all of them. The Draknari remained isolated, their pride preventing them from cooperating. But enough empires chose collaboration over conquest that the first mixed crews began forming. Taemin watched from Nari's bridge as the unlikely partnerships took shape. Engineers from species that had never trusted each other worked side by side. Diplomats who had negotiated through interpreters found ways to communicate directly. Scientists shared theories across cultural barriers that had seemed impossible to cross. The second test, Nari announced as the joint crews approached her airlocks, is what you do with the knowledge I share. As the first groups entered the ship, they found themselves in chambers filled with wonders beyond imagination. Holographic displays showed star maps leading to worlds of impossible beauty. Libraries contained the accumulated wisdom of millions of years. Laboratories held technologies that could solve any problem. But they also found Taemin, standing quietly in each chamber with a simple question: what will you do with this? Some groups spoke immediately of the weapons they could build, the territories they could claim, the enemies they could defeat. These groups found the knowledge they sought turning into basic mathematical formulas, useful but hardly revolutionary. Others spoke of healing diseases, ending hunger, bringing peace to war-torn worlds. These groups found the knowledge expanding, revealing deeper secrets and more profound possibilities. You are not just sharing information, Ambassador Choi realized during her visit to the ship. You are teaching values. Knowledge without wisdom is dangerous, Nari replied. The gardeners learned this from experience. I share their discoveries in proportion to each being's capacity to use them responsibly. The process continued for days. Some empires, frustrated by the conditions, withdrew their fleets and departed. Others, including the Draknari, attempted to take the ship by force only to find their weapons mysteriously failing to function when aimed at Nari. But many empires embraced the challenge. They formed cooperative research teams, shared resources freely, and began to see former enemies as potential partners. The mixed crews that had started as political necessity evolved into genuine friendships. Taemin found himself busier than ever, but not as a janitor. He became Nari's voice and representative, helping to guide the growing community that had formed around the ship. His small quarters were replaced by a comfortable suite aboard Nari herself, where he could always be available to mediate disputes and offer guidance. Sujin joined him there, taking a position as coordinator for the multicultural research teams. She had a gift for helping beings from different species work together effectively. Do you miss cleaning floors? She asked one evening as they watched mixed crews from a dozen empires collaborating on a project to develop clean energy technology. Sometimes, Taemin admitted, but this is cleaning too, in a way. We are cleaning up old prejudices and conflicts, making space for something better to grow. The gardeners would be proud, Nari added. You have exceeded even my hopes for what this test might accomplish. 6 months later, Harmony's Edge had become something unprecedented in galactic history, a truly neutral ground where any species could come to learn and share knowledge. The station expanded rapidly as new research facilities were built. The old docking bay where Nari had once sat alone became the heart of a thriving community, dedicated to cooperation and mutual aid. Taemin still worked night shifts, but now he was maintaining something far more important than a space station. He was helping to maintain the dream of a galaxy where different species could work together for the benefit of all. And late at night, when the corridors were quiet and most of the researchers had gone to sleep, he and Nari would talk. Sometimes about profound matters of wisdom and philosophy, sometimes about simple things like the best way to clean difficult stains or the satisfaction of seeing something dirty become clean again. Do you ever regret it? Nari asked one night. Giving up your quiet life to carry this burden? Taemin looked out at the stars through the viewport of his quarters. Somewhere out there, worlds that had been locked in conflict for centuries were learning to cooperate because of what had happened here. Diseases that had plagued entire species were being cured by joint research efforts. And former enemies were becoming friends through the simple act of working together toward common goals. No, he said quietly. This is what I was meant to do. I am still a janitor, Nari. I just have a bigger place to clean now. The lights along the ship's corridors pulsed gently in response, Nari's way of smiling. After 37,000 years of loneliness, she had finally found not just a partner, but a friend who understood that the greatest power in the universe was not the ability to destroy, but the willingness to serve. And in the growing community around them, the dream of the gardeners lived on.